Welcome, everybody, to Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of life, love, and purpose. I'm so happy that you're here. I can't wait to dive into my conversation with my new friend over here, Alexis Stetler. She is the owner and founder of Whxte Atelier. Thank you so much for being here, Alexis. I can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Good, me too. So we had the pleasure of meeting through a mutual acquaintance friend, Bianca, who has been here on the podcast as well. Wonderful, wonderful soul, human. I just love her energy, everything about her. She's so great. And she was like, I just think you two need to know each other.
Yeah.
So, and that's how so many of these conversations go. I meet so many people, and now it's just much more of an organic thing. I mean, of course I have a lot of people on here that I've known for a long time, but it's not uncommon for people to say, hey, I think you need to have a conversation with this person. I think there's a reason you need to connect. So when I talked to you, I was like, oh yeah, I would love to chat with you. So I'm glad that you're here, and I can't wait to dive into you and hear your story and learn a little bit more about everything that you're all about. So
yeah, thank you. And shout out to Bianca for connecting us. She's been a personal and business coach of mine for at least 6 months now. And it's, whenever she says something like, hey, you should check this out, I definitely
you listen,
turn my ears onto it. So yeah, I'm excited to meet you and learn more about you as well.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, she definitely knows. She's got that serious intuition like all of us have. And she's so, again, I trust her. And that's why I was like, okay, yeah, definitely. So I want to know, this is one of the things she had said to me, and we're going to dive into this. And this has to do with your jewelry company, which I mentioned, Whxte Atelier. Atelier. I keep screwing this up.
Tomato.
I'm so sorry. But she had talked about how you make jewelry with spiritual numbers, and that was kind of part of it. And I was like immediately drawn to that because I'm a huge numbers person.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that's probably part of your draw too. But I want to talk first just to get to know you, and I want to know sort of what your story is. First of all, for you to get involved with someone like Bianca and do energy work is a path. You don't just arrive there. It takes you on a journey to get there. So I want to know a little bit about your history. You don't need to give me your whole life story, but just maybe in a nutshell, kind of where you came from and what kind of took you down that road that led you to something like that type of work to kind of put you where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Indiana. I didn't grow up in Arizona, so
How long have you been in Arizona?
I've been here for about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So grew up in Indiana with a single mom and very humble beginnings, like a great childhood overall.
Do you have siblings?
No.
Okay.
I have a half sibling, but we didn't grow up together.
Okay.
So I grew up an only child, and yeah, it was just us two most of the time. My dad and her got divorced when I was 1, so I saw him on the weekends, but it was really kind of like that Gilmore Girl best friend relationship that we had for most of my life. There were a couple rough years when I was a teenager, like most mom and daughters. That's kind of a rough patch. But yeah, had a pretty normal upbringing and went to college at Indiana University. And after I graduated, I was just really restless where I was in life. Like I wasn't really putting myself in the right places or around the right people. I was kind of just on this self-destructive path and making a lot of bad choices for myself. And I wasn't seeing a pattern to it. It was kind of just all of this trauma and, things that we pick up as we grow that was being bottled up and masked with, alcohol and drugs and all the things that you get into as a young adolescent. And I just, I wasn't heading down a great path, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and there were just all these question marks at that point in time in my life.
And this was what age were you?
22.
Okay.
Right out of college. So, I had this degree, and I I wasn't really feeling inspired by like any of the opportunities that Indiana had to offer.
What did you study?
So I studied broadcast journalism.
Oh, interesting.
And then I ended up also studying business marketing because I figured out with the journalism piece that I loved the storytelling part of it, but I didn't like the negative part of the news. And so whenever I would go to create these like pieces, they were always fluff pieces because I wanted to talk about the positive aspects. And they were like, well, that's not news. And I was like, well, then where does this leave me? And that kind of led me down the road to marketing. And I combined, now they have this big like media school where they talk a lot about social media and online advertising and all these different things that are so prevalent in our world now. But at the time they didn't really have that. So I made my own path, so to speak, and I combined the two. And it's funny because like my favorite classes from college, I still think about them. A journalism class that I had where I was like using a lot of camera and writing stories. One of them was a business marketing class. And then the other two, one of them was this random summer class that I took, and it was all about piercings, like ear piercings and jewelry. It was like the history of that.
Oh, I'm sure that was really interesting.
Yeah, it was so interesting. And then the other class was this geology class, so the study of rocks.
Huh.
And now what I do today, like I had no idea, but everything, like all those classes are what I do today.
That's amazing.
And
that happens so much. People don't realize they've been doing it for a long time. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's what that was about.
Yeah, it clicks. Like, it's like, I never thought that I would be utilizing like the favorite parts of my education in this way now. But obviously there was a long road to get there and a lot of jobs that I hated and all of that. But anyway, roundabout way of saying, like, when I graduated, I just had no idea what I was going to do. And I thought I had an idea. And so I ended up taking a job in Arizona. And it was this small startup. There were like 3 guys, and it was this small startup production company. And I had never been to Arizona. I had no friends, no family there. I didn't know anybody. I just gotten connected through like a mutual person for this job. And it was a startup, and, they were paying peanuts. And I was like, well, it, gets me out of Indiana, and I wanted to go out west. Like I envisioned myself being in California eventually. And I was like, this will be a nice lily pad.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'll get to learn some things and use my skill set in broadcast and marketing. And so, yeah, I packed up my car and I drove out to Arizona by myself.
That's a big leap.
It was a big leap. Yeah, now that I think about it, it was insanity, but it didn't seem that insane at the time. It was almost like it felt like my only option, which it wasn't, but it felt like the best option. I'll say that. And yeah, I think there was like a little bit of rebellion, which I've always had in me, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I had this rebellious streak in me at that time. And I was like, we're just going to try it. And it was scary, and it did take a little bit of time to really have Arizona feel like home. And I was, kind of sleeping on friends' couches and making ends meet. I had loans from college that I was still paying off, not really making any money, just trying to figure it out. And yeah, so that was a pretty like crazy pivotal time in my life, but that's what brought me here.
Wow.
And so I, ended up not staying with that company. I was with them for maybe a month, and then I kind of just was floating a little bit and figuring out.
So that just got you here.
Yeah, that just got me here. Mm-hmm. And then I was kind of hopping from job to job. I was like dabbling in entrepreneurship. It's something that I kept coming back to because I really wanted to do it, but I was so green. There was so much that I needed to learn. Mm-hmm. And so I was working for different companies and doing all sorts of things. I was building websites. I was writing campaigns, really just like everything under the marketing umbrella. And I was kind of one of those people that I would get bored of a job. Like I'd kind of master the skill and I was like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
And so that was like my career path here. And during all of that, I had met my my ex-husband now, but we had met kind of right when I had moved to Arizona. And and he's also from Indiana. So it was kind of like that mutual
connection.
Yeah, like that piece of home, right? And through, I think that was the reason that we kind of, it made sense at that point because we were both new to Arizona and we were both from the same hometown. And it just, when you move somewhere new, especially somewhere like really far, it's scary. And so yeah, having that mutual connection really like brought us together, I think. And we moved really quickly with our relationship. And I was young at that point in time, but it was like one of those things where my life had been so turbulent and he kind of felt like that white knight that we all read about or watch in movies as kids growing up, that there's this guy, this Prince Charming that comes and saves you, essentially. And at that point in time, I think I believed that was kind of my only option because I was trying all these different things and nothing was really working out. And within business and just relationships and everything just seemed so turbulent. And then he comes in and it's like, wow, this is, it felt like a fairy tale, honestly, the way our relationship started out. And so, yeah, we dated and, did all the steps quickly. Like I mentioned, we moved in together and got a dog together and then eventually got engaged. And I think that, looking back now, and obviously we're not together because I mentioned ex-husband, there were points in the relationship early on that I can see now that I was like, that was not right. But I think I had such little self-worth at that point in time and self-love. And so I wasn't able to like recognize that for myself because I just thought this is, there are trade-offs for everything and this is as good as it will get for you. And, you're crazy for thinking anything otherwise. Like this is everything that you could ask for. Even though there were things in my body that were telling me this is off.
Explain that a little bit.
So this is actually a huge thing now that I practice with anybody that I meet and want to pursue a relationship with, whether that's dating or friends or business partners. It's like how you feel in your body after you spend time with that person.
Yeah.
And it's a really good telltale sign for just if you guys are a vibrational, energetic match or if you're not.
Right.
And especially if you're, once intimacy comes into play with that individual, like just the chemistry there, like how it all goes is a big telltale sign as well. Hopefully, you kind of figure it out before it gets to that point. But if you don't, I think that's also a really good marker. But yeah, I didn't pay attention I was so out of tune with my body at that point in time, like so out of tune. And so now, when I meet somebody new, whether again, it's business or friends, or relationship, I'll have a couple meetings with them and I'll kind of just sit afterwards and feel like, am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling negative about myself? Or am I feeling energized and really good? And like, I want to take on the world and like, I feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a compass that we all possess, that intuition and just that internal gut feeling.
Yep.
And we're not really taught how to listen to it.
That's so true.
At all. Like that's not part of our curriculum.
No,
you know?
I know. I wish it was. Well, it's becoming more.
Yeah.
It's becoming more.
It is.
But it has a long way to go.
It is. And it's a journey for everybody, right? Like I still stumble and, question, am I crazy for having these feelings? Like, again, this looks so good on paper.
Right.
But
how does it really feel on the
how
inside?
does it feel?
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. Like we're all just like these vibrational frequencies and, we're matches for some people and we're not matches for other people.
And also at different times.
Yes, exactly. Because we're constantly evolving and changing.
Right.
So yeah, at that point in my life, like I wasn't really, and I have so much grace for myself too, because I was really young and there were so many things that I just couldn't have known, especially not ever having like a model relationship to look up to. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't even have like a great, super close relationship with my dad. Like I joke that now that he passed away in 2019, but now that he's passed, we have a better relationship now than we ever did when he was alive, just because of, the healing and the communicating, and we'll probably get into that. But, I didn't really know what to look for. And so, giving myself grace for that, there were some signs, especially as we were leading up to the marriage and, shortly after marriage, it was kind of like very quickly, this is not right. And this is not a good feeling. And I got pregnant like right after our wedding. Mm. And we had this small, really, really nice, beautiful COVID wedding. And it was like a fairy tale. And I got pregnant really quickly after. And we had our daughter. And like, I always say that I owe everything to my daughter, because it's like, that just woke me up to so much, like having my own, experiencing like the birth of my child and just like that love. It like took me out of like any, I don't know, it like made me connect more to myself in a way, and like gave me more purpose. Mm-hmm. Like she is my purpose. But that, it also came with like it was like the start of the awakening kind of that I had of.
Yeah, we all have, if we're on our journey, which we're constantly on our journey our whole life, but when you become aware of your journey, that awakening moment, there's usually a pivotal time in your life. A lot of times it's a big life event, or it's a trauma event, or losing someone, or sometimes it's not though. Sometimes it just smacks you and you're like, wait a minute. I don't know what's happening, but something is happening.
Yes. Yeah.
It comes in many ways for different people.
It does. It does. And I kind of joke. I was actually talking to somebody about this past weekend. I have had a lot of like big universal smacks. Like I like to learn my lessons the hard way.
A lot of us do.
And, I'm hoping that by sharing this, that maybe I can save somebody from a universal smack, because it's like, what else is, we're here to connect, and it's hard to be vulnerable and to share things that like are really triggering and were really hard to go through. And I've been a pretty private person for a while as well. So yeah, hopefully I can save somebody from a universal smack somewhere in their journey. But my daughter was like the start of the awakening for a lot of things. And that didn't just look spiritual to me, you know, health-wise. Like I had made some poor health decisions, and I think it was just eye-opening. And that was also like after COVID, so I think a lot of us were getting our eyes open to different things. But the whole like healthcare system when you're pregnant and giving birth is very interesting. And so I started just looking more into like what I'm ingesting, like medications, food, you know, all the pesticides and everything that, you know, is in our food system, in our water system, in our medications. Like I was just, you know, down the rabbit hole on that first, and learning so much and really just educating myself and advocating for myself. And through that, I think the spiritual aspect started to come as well. You know, I'd lost my dad a couple years prior, and I just kept on having this this nagging feeling to see a psychic medium, and I'd never done that before. But I just kept feeling it. Like there was something pinging in my head, like go see a medium. And my cousin, who on my dad's side is into that stuff as well, she had sent me a book written by Laura Lynn Jackson, who's a psychic medium. And the book's called Signs. It's an incredible book. And that was like my first introduction. And it sounds so dramatic, but I swear that book changed my life.
I believe you.
It opened my eyes to so many things. It helped me heal like my relationship with death. And it helped me also to communicate with my loved ones that had passed, specifically my dad. And so that's kind of like why I joke about us having a better relationship now, because we weren't the best communicators. Like when he was alive, he was like very much a man of few words. And now I ask him for signs, and he just all the
delivers.
Time. I see him all the time. Yeah. And he shows up when I do my medium sessions, and yeah, so it's been
That's awesome.
It is. It's been a really healing experience. But yeah, I you know, I started getting into it, and I was seeing psychic mediums, and I was strengthening my intuition and getting healthier mentally, physically, every single way. And yeah, there was like definitely, and at the same time, you know, the relationship with my ex-husband was just going really downhill.
Was there a disconnect between your awakening and where he was with this? Were you able to openly communicate about this stuff, or was this something you kept to yourself because it wasn't understood? What was that like?
I think a lot of it was not really understood. But we just had a disconnect in communication in general. And I think that I was growing and really quickly in a direction. And then I was noticing really just like the toxic behaviors. And I was noticing the treatment, and it just was not good. It wasn't healthy. And
Do you mean how he was treating you?
Yeah. And, you know, I think, yeah, it wasn't good. And it would flow, like it would have ups and downs like any relationship. But this was a little more extreme. And I was just, I think for a long time I was convinced that like it was my problem or my fault. And I kept, and this is something that I've really had to heal. But I kept like putting myself last, or like putting the blame on myself.
Making excuses for what was happening?
Yeah, making excuses for the behavior, what was happening. And that's just something that I've really learned is something that I have to heal. Yeah, it you know, was becoming more and more glaringly obvious that it was not a healthy relationship. And
How were others out on the outside? Were others aware of it, or was this very private?
It was very private. You know, on the outside, I think we painted an incredibly beautiful, it was like, again, that fairy tale picture. Like everything looked perfect. And I was to blame for that too, because I was the one.
You were playing along.
Oh yeah, I was totally playing along. And it just looked, and I have friends tell me this too, that from the outside, it just looked perfect.
They had no idea.
I had it all figured out. Yeah. And on the inside, it was just ugly.
I think that's so common.
Yeah. And it just kept getting uglier. And it got to the point where we had decided to do couples therapy, and that was really eye-opening for me, because it was like we would be sitting in the same room, but we were like in two different books.
Yeah. On different planets, it sounds like.
On different planets, yeah. His version of the story versus mine. It was just could not be further. And yeah, there was just a lot of like, I didn't feel good, like emotionally, like, you know, there's that safety aspect, and I just wasn't feeling safe or comfortable. And that manifests into everything else. Like, it manifests physically, like with intimacy. And so, yeah, it was definitely a really rocky start. And I started to kind of put the pieces together that the way that I was being treated was not normal. And it was not just like normal couple fighting. It was beyond that. And, you know, then you start going down the rabbit hole of like, okay, what is this? Can we fix this? Right? That's the first thing most people get to is like, how do we fix it?
Right.
Because for me, like one of the biggest reasons that I feel like I chose that relationship was because on paper it was perfect. And I was like, this person is going to be the best husband, the best dad, like will provide that life that I want. And that was like my biggest fear, was being what my mom was, which is this struggling single mom.
Right. Yeah.
And then, you know, here we are. But at the time, like I really thought that, and it just so quickly became the opposite of the fairy tale. And I almost like just couldn't believe it. Like I didn't want to believe it. And I just kept thinking, how do we fix this? How, you know, I just have to move forward. Like it'll get better. And, when my daughter was almost she just turned a year old.
How old is she now?
She is almost 3. She'll be 3 next month.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I was at that time, I was like working part-time and taking care of her as a stay-at-home mom. So really like had kind of given up my career, and you know, I was just not, I had a really hard time with like the baby stage, and I don't have any family here. So
that's tough.
And we were already kind of in a bad place in our relationship. So it just felt really isolating. Mm-hmm. And our daughter was super colicky as well, and not a sleeper. And so it was just like this huge battle of like, I was so tired. Like I remember for months and months and months getting like 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night.
Oh my gosh.
It was brutal. And that certainly like has its impact on
everything.
Yeah, everything as well. So that was kind of like the first year. And I remember we had just gotten back from our vacation at Christmas, and it was not good. And the signs were really on the wall at that point, and I was kind of like panicking. I just remember being in this state of like panic. Like I was tired. I knew that I wasn't in a healthy relationship. I was starting to accept that I could not change it, and started panicking on, okay, what now? Like, what do you do now? You don't have a career anymore. You've got a 1-year-old. Like, what now?
Yeah, that's scary.
And I remember I I was with my daughter, and we had just gotten back from music class, and I had this crock pot full of, it was like a stew or something. You know, you're making like soft foods for kids at that age, and having them try different things. And we were dealing with a ton of like allergy type questions with her. So like I was doing a ton of cooking basically. And our house was like completely baby proofed. We had this professional come in and baby proof the whole house. And when they were here, they were like, watch out for these things in the toilet, and pots and pans on the counter and all of that. And like all this, like we knew, and we thought we had covered. But that day, I don't know why, the crock pot was on the island counter, and she was just starting to stand up, like pull herself up on things. And so anyway, we'd gotten home from music class, and I was in the fridge, like trying to figure out something for lunch. And I had my back turned, and she crawled over to where the pot was and pulled herself up with the cord. And it came crashing down, and it splashed all over her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I remember like immediately, like, I was just like in shock, like instant shock. I grabbed her and I ripped her clothes off, and I put her in the shower, like cold water, because that's what you do when you get a burn, right? You stick it under cold water. But it had splashed, so the pot had fallen and it had kind of splashed on her, and she was screaming hysterically. And I took her clothes off, and then when I put her in the shower, her skin just started peeling.
Oh my gosh.
Peeling. And I got her in the car, because I was like, I cannot wait for an ambulance to come. Like, I put her in the car, and I drove to Phoenix Children's Hospital. And I remember calling my husband and being like, this just happened, and you need to come to the hospital. And at the time I was like, it's probably 1st degree burns, because it was like quick action. Like everything happened quickly, and I got it off her quickly. So we got to the hospital. They gave her really heavy drugs immediately, which, like, for me, being like a mom that's like so anti,
Yeah.
I was like anti-cough syrup, like all these things, like just so crunchy. It was horrific. But like, obviously that's just a scenario where you have to do that.
She was in extreme
pain.
There's nothing more painful than burn.
Yeah, nothing. No, it is the most,
It's the most painful thing you can endure physically.
Yeah. They say it's more painful than childbirth.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we went to Phoenix Children's. They transferred us to Valley-Wise Burn Center. We have actually a really great burn hospital here in Arizona, which I didn't know, because I've never known anybody to get burned. And it's never been on my radar whatsoever. But we spent a month in the hospital. It was the most horrific thing ever.
Oh my gosh.
And she had 15% of her body was in 2nd and 3rd degree burns, which at that point, when it's that deep, they a lot of times decide to do surgery to help it heal, because it just won't heal on its own when that much skin has been melted. So we were there for a month. She had 5 different surgeries.
Oh my gosh.
Skin grafts. And every day was just like a nightmare. Like, she was bloody and...
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine.
Yeah, all bandaged up.
What that was like.
And it was awful. The guilt, and just watching your kid go through something like that. And, I was so angry too, because it's like, how did this happen? Like, I just couldn't I couldn't figure out like how and why it had happened. Like it just made no sense to me. Like how that could have slipped my mind, or how it just, I remember just being so like upset with myself, and I think that happening, spending a month in the hospital, and the reaction of my ex-husband, that was like the nail in the coffin for us. Because it was one of those events that's like, okay, this is either going to bring you closer together or just,
oh, for sure,
be the end of it. And it was definitely the end of it. And yeah, I had to deal with a lot of really just nasty stuff, like with him, and obviously did not help the situation and what I was already feeling. But yeah, that took a while to really like come back from, and we still do physical therapy with her, and it's a long road healing from a burn, and she's great now. Like she's a normal kid, it doesn't stop her from doing anything. Overall, her healing has been really spectacular.
Where on her body was she burned mainly?
So mainly her right arm, and then her upper chest. Yeah. And yeah, it was, it was just, it's something that no parent ever wants to, and we're lucky, honestly, because it could have been worse. Like we could have lost her. There were, so you have to count the blessings and something like that as well. But,
wow.
Yeah, it was really, really heavy stuff, and something that I beat myself up for a long time. But yeah, we kind of, that put a pause kind of on everything else, because like our focus was just getting her better and healing her. And so that was, that took precedent for a while. But after that, I was seeing therapists, and I would see a psychic medium, because I was just like,
I'm sure you wanted more explanation than just talk therapy.
Yeah, I was like, what is
the purpose of this? What is this about?
Yeah.
What did you get?
I think, I don't know that I know still why that happened. And I did find out that, our souls kind of choose our path before we come here. And for whatever reason, like that was a moment that happened, and probably that her soul signed up for whatever reason. And it changed the trajectory of all of our lives.
I believe that too.
My life, her life, his life. And so, yeah, I think that it happened just to kind of be that nail in the coffin, honestly, and to make us all stronger in certain ways too, So yeah, after that, I kind of just had like that was like my really big wake up of like, I just wanted answers for so many different things, and I wanted to heal, and I was so sad and so down on myself. And so, yeah, that kind of like, I guess, resurfaced a lot of things that I had been avoiding for a while. And I started kind of just doing the work, and the writing was on the wall for our relationship. Absolutely. At that point, it just, and from his perspective, I don't know if I were in his shoes, like how I would have reacted.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. I would hope that I would be comforting and forgiving, but I don't know.
Right.
And
we can't ever know what it's like to be in anybody else's skin.
Yeah, no, not at all. And
we
so
can't. We can empathize and we can have compassion.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to know.
Yeah.
Because it's not us.
Yeah.
We're connected, but it's not us.
Right.
It's not our journey.
Right. Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Accepting that. That is not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I think all of that kind of happened, and it was just, it was like too much, I was like, and I think I still didn't want to accept for a while that like our relationship was ending too.
Mm.
And
because not only were you going to be a single mom, you're going to be a single mom to a child that needs a lot of help.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big road ahead of you.
Yeah.
That must have felt very daunting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very scary, very daunting. And so I think for a while, too, I was seeing different people trying to get advice. I had finally started opening up to a couple really close, like, friends and family about what had been going on in the relationship, and started being a little bit more vocal, trying to figure it out instead of just holding it all in. And that was definitely helpful. But I remember like a pivotal point through all of it being, I was thinking about Sienna, our daughter, and I was like, what example do I want to leave her with?
Hmm.
Because there's that question of like, do you just stay together for the kids or not? And I thought for a while that that was the answer. You stay together. But yeah, I read that somewhere, and it was just like, your kids are going to expect, like, if you have a daughter, she's going to expect to be treated the way that she sees mommy being treated.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa with a son. Like, he's going to expect, or he's going to treat women probably. Sometimes it goes the other way, but oftentimes, like, we just kind of...
Example.
Yeah, you're setting that example.
Well, not even just that, but just of their relationship in general. What does it look like?
Right. Is it happy? Is
Mm-hmm.
it full of laughter? Is it kind?
Yeah.
Is it, all the things? And...
Well, and you also had an interesting background of your own. I mean, like you said from the beginning, you didn't get an example of a relationship to grow up around. So it was new to you as far as having any kind of example. I mean, sure, you knew people, I'm sure,
mm-hmm. but
in your home, totally different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And so yeah, that was the moment when I was like, wow, that really hit me. Like, I don't want her growing up thinking that this is, and then it's just like repeating that generational cycle,
mm-hmm.
right? Of like what my mom had chosen and what her mom, like my grandma, had chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was just starting to see the patterns. Mm-hmm. And for him as well, what his dad had chosen. Just,
wow.
It was
There's
like
a lot going on with you considering this, it sounds like.
Yeah. But that was a pivotal point for me, and I was like, okay, this is probably like over. And it took some time after that, but we eventually, did end up filing. And it was after, I knew it was coming, and we'd had a big blow-up fight, and the next day I was like, that was it. And I went and filed. And I think the craziest part about that was like how hard and like long it took me to come to that decision, and how afterwards, like, everything started falling into place. It was like I'd finally chosen for myself.
I was just going to say, you finally chose you.
I finally chose me.
Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here
you go. Mm-hmm. And it was just like one thing after another. And I remember my sister calling me like really shortly after that. And we had essentially, like, when my dad passed, he left us both a small inheritance. And I had chosen to spend most of that on the wedding and like the furniture for our house, which I don't advise. But it was, you know, at the time what I decided to do, and I was happy to do it. And there was like one part left. It was his building, and it was never supposed to sell. Like, it was just on like a loan, and this guy was like paying like a small amount on the loan. He was supposed to pay it for the next like 10 years. And I got a call from my sister that he decided to buy the building, and that we were both going to be getting like a check for an amount of money. And at that time I was like, it
fell from
it
the
was
sky
what
for
I
you.
needed. Yeah. It was what I needed to be able to like land on my feet. Because I was thinking, like, I'm not going to have anything. Like, I'm going to be, you know, sleeping on a floor somewhere. And
instead of living out of fear and staying there, you chose to live out of love for yourself.
Yeah.
And look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like one thing after another with that, like, with just things falling into place in my favor. And it was really beautiful in its own way. You know, it was like a death and rebirth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. It came with pain, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tons of pain that, you know, I'm still dealing with. It's hard to say goodbye to that fairy tale and know that, like, it'll never be that. And, like, I have faith that it'll be even better than I ever thought, but, like, it'll never be the original fairy tale that I thought were.
But that wasn't even real anyway.
No.
And that's what you have to remember. It's all perspective.
Yeah.
And you know that now.
Right. Right. Absolutely. But yeah, you know, through that, I just got stronger every single day. And I was working a lot with a psychic medium. Like, I would see her once a month and just working on different things, right? Like, we would do some Reiki sessions. We would do some like intuition strengthening sessions, some mediumship sessions, like getting guidance. And I learned so much just about our souls and our path and our angels just being around us at all times, like sending us signs. And just like all this like knowledge, I feel like got dumped onto me. It was like hitting this jackpot, this proverbial, like, it was just insane to me. I'm like, this has been here all along. And here I've been just wandering through life, like ignoring all the signs. And
you just weren't ready.
Yeah.
Wasn't your time yet.
Right. But I was like, is it really this simple? Is it really just trusting how your body feels and trusting, like, asking for signs and getting answers, like communicating? Mm-hmm. And so
once you realize that, it changes everything.
It changed everything, like how I thought about life and relationships and business and everything. You know, I think I was, for so long, I was operating out of this place of fear and like limiting beliefs, like, that'll never happen for you. You came from this, like, you'll never be able to do that.
And that's what was happening. You were manifesting that because
Yes.
we're constantly manifesting.
Right.
And you were manifesting those things, the relationship, all of it.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden you were shifting what you were understanding, and it was manifesting in another direction.
Right. Absolutely.
More favorable to what you really wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. So things started falling into place. I'm learning how to trust myself, how to choose myself, how to love myself, all the big things.
So huge. It's everything.
Everything. I'm talking to God. I'm connecting. I'm journaling. I'm working out. I'm just trying to be like the best version of myself, because I'm like, I hit rock bottom. Like, it's only up from here. Like, I can't, there's nowhere else.
You're like, let's
to
just go up.
Yeah. There's nowhere else.
Wow.
And so I had just moved out of our house, and I had met with a colleague, and she was like, let's work together and, go in on our marketing business. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Like at that point I was just like open. I was so open. I was trusting like where the universe was taking me. And so
that's the best place to be.
Yeah. We were working together, for a small amount of time, and our business relationship did not pan out. But while we were working on marketing together, it kind of gave me that strength to be like, okay, you can do this on your own. Like, cause I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I just like always had that fear, like you can't do it. Like I've been told you can't do it. I was telling myself that. And so it kind of gave me that like push that I needed to be like, you can do this. And so I was starting my marketing business back up, like officially for like the 5th time, but like actually like going all in, and
believing in it.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the magic sauce.
Yes, absolutely believing in yourself. And so I was doing that, and I had a recent mediumship session, and I was like, where is my career going? Because I was asking just so many life questions, like where is life going? Where is career going? Where is, relationships? And part of what she had said, she was like, I see you doing jewelry. And she's like, I see you having your own like small business, and it's jewelry. And I was like, that's interesting. And like, I've always loved jewelry, but I could never really afford it. Like I always had an eye for, like, I would joke that if I could go into a store and there was 0 price tags, I would 10 out of 10 times pick the most expensive thing. Like, I just like,
you just have that kind of taste.
I did. I liked, there's something about like, which I've found through like self-discovery and my human design. It's just part of like my makeup as a human. But at the time I didn't know what that was. I just thought it was like materialistic. And
no, you clearly were drawn to it.
Yeah.
Like from inside.
Yeah.
Like from college.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
To the stones.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And the piercings. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd always liked jewelry, but I'd never worn a lot because I couldn't afford what I liked. And I was like, that's really interesting. And so I kind of just marinated on that. And maybe like a month later, I had told my business partner at the time for the marketing stuff, like we had been working together maybe a month or so. And I was like, yeah, I could see myself doing this. Like I was told this, and it just kind of felt right. And that was kind of the end of that conversation. We were like, okay, let's get back to work, like back to reality. And then I kid you not, later that day, she saw a post online, like on social media, about this woman selling her jewelry business. And she forwarded it to me, and she's like, here you go. And it was just like a private post from someone like in the network. Like it wasn't this big thing.
Blasted publicly.
No. It was just like the one person that had posted about it.
No accidents.
No. And so I like laughed. I was like, that's so funny. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to fill it out. And I had 0 expectations. Like I was just thinking, I've never heard of like a jewelry company in Arizona, other than like the very Western, like I was just picturing It's probably going to be some like older woman with this like big Western jewelry that I would,
yeah,
like maybe
Native American.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'll learn something. And so, cause I didn't have a name or anything, so I couldn't look it up. And I scheduled a meeting with the owner, Aisha, and I was just like instantly connected with her and connected with the brand and with Whxte, and it felt like something that I had created, like from the colors to the name to the visuals to the pieces. It was so me.
It resonated.
And she was selling it because it didn't feel like her. She was like, had created this thing, and it was kind of like something that she thought she wanted to do more, like because the business aspect of it sounded really good.
It was a romantic idea, probably.
Yeah, it was a romantic idea. She had been really successful in a previous business, and she was just like, let's just do it. And she was in it for 2 years, and she was just like, I don't know who I created this for, but it's not for me.
Wow.
And
even she realized that.
Yeah. And
well, that's divine right there.
Exactly. And we kept on, like, so we were talking, and she had other buyers interested, but her and I really clicked. And she was like, I want to sell it to you. And I was like, it's funny, like, I met with this psychic, and she told me that I would have a jewelry business, and and she was like, oh my gosh, like, I see a psychic too. And I've been asking her, like, who am I supposed to sell this to? And all these offers look good, right? Like, look good on paper, but she kept saying,
she wanted the right match.
Yeah. And the psychic was like, not the right person. And after she met me, it was funny, like, after the first meeting, she had gone to the psychic, and I had kind of just, like, asked my guides, like my dad, I was like, send me a sign. I was like, I want to see a flamingo if this is made for me, like, if this is for me.
You got to be specific with those signs.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. Yep. So I'd asked for a flamingo, and she had called her psychic, and an hour later I saw a flamingo. I was digging in this old box for something, and me and my dad's thing was kind of flamingos, like stuffed animal flamingos. And one of the stuffed animal flamingos that was just like hiding in this box.
It surfaced.
And yeah, it surfaced. It was like right there. And I wasn't thinking about that. Like, I didn't know it was in there. So it was just like such a clear sign.
Oh,
and
wow.
She had gone to her person and asked, and she was like, this woman with the daughter, like, this is good energy. Like, this is it. And she was like, you're going to sell it to her. Like, it'll happen. Because I was like super cold feet. I was like, I can't afford this. I'm going through divorce. Like, this is so scary. I was just being such a pain in the butt about it.
We get in our own ways.
Yeah.
We don't trust.
Yeah.
So true. We don't realize that if we just surrender to it, it will unfold. Mm-hmm. And it never unfolds the way you expect it.
No.
Ever.
No.
That's the best part. You're like, I'm getting goosebumps. I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can't plan for it.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. And it was so crazy too, because our meetings, like, I think we met like 5 times in person. Every single time we would leave our meeting, it was 2:22 on the clock. Like, and it was like 3 times in a row. And we kept on seeing these numbers, and I see a lot of angel numbers, and
that's all about trust too.
Yeah. But during that time period, it was like boom, boom. Like, it was just one after another, like, so crazy. And I was still having like trust issues, and I met with like 2 other psychics, and they were like, do this. Like, this is right for you.
Stop resisting.
Yeah. And so I'd finally kind of figured out the financial piece of it, and I'd prayed about it. I was like, if this is for me, like, bring something into my vision that is going to make me feel comfortable with the financial aspect. And then that fell into place, and then it was mine. Like, like a month later I bought it, and
wow.
So it's really, and I never thought that I would be here, like, just in any of this situation. And it's like, it gets so giddy, like the inner child in me, when I get to say, like, I own a fine jewelry company. Like, I'm the owner of Whxte Atelier. Like, I'm so proud of it. Mm. And, I'm proud of my marketing business too. I love my marketing business. I love helping, small business owners, like, learn how to market themselves and how to be successful. That is absolutely a passion of mine as well. But
don't you think that's interesting? I want to pause there for a second, because to think about it, you had this skill around helping other entrepreneurs, mm-hmm. yet you were totally neglecting yourself around that endeavor.
Yeah.
You've been doing it all along.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've been helping others, and that's what energetically was happening. You just hadn't figured it out for yourself yet. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you did, and now here it is.
Yeah. And
again, that's one of those pieces the whole time that you've possessed and had and have been naturally doing.
Yeah.
Again, just keeping you on that path.
100%. And all the odd end jobs that I took, the classes that I took in college, you know, the jobs where I felt like I was failing because I would get bored or I would want to try something else. And then I had this wide range skill set that was just weird. Like, it all plays a part. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like the biggest thing that I've learned is like, things are going to happen in your life and you can either be bitter about it or you can make you better.
Yeah. Bitter or better.
Yeah. You can use that as leverage to be like,
to grow
and to be your best self. Like, it's all, the universe is either giving us a blessing or a lesson.
Exactly.
It's like,
but that's all perspective.
Yeah.
It's a perspective.
It is.
And when we change our perspective to realize that it is actually for us, I say this a lot on here, is this isn't happening to me. This is happening for me. So why is this happening for me? What does this mean?
Right.
And start paying attention.
Yeah.
And the more awareness you have around those things, the more it develops.
Right.
And becomes.
Right. And because
you're creating it.
Absolutely. And that's how I think I've been able to be so positive as I look at everything. Like, even my relationship with my ex-husband, I'm like, I'm so grateful for that because it changed everything. And it gave me my daughter. Like, there's so much to be grateful for. Like, the
this was all part of your plan that you created.
Yeah.
I mean, you did that for you did that.
Yeah.
That was you manifesting.
Yeah.
Everything that was in your path that you wanted to create in this life, to step into the things that you want to do, that you're creating. Mm-hmm. You're building it. That's what's so fascinating that I've learned on my path, my journey, is that we really we're all creators. That's all we're here to do, is create, love, and be loved. And through all of those things, we can create a life of intention. We can create a life of purpose. We can create a life of compassion and connection. And I'm getting goosebumps on my head. The only way through that is to embrace it.
Yeah.
All of it. Even the things that we love and don't love about even ourselves. You got to love all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, because it's all part of it. Yeah. And there's nothing, it's all worthy of your love.
And
all of it.
Yeah. And you said embracing it too, like embracing your scars and like your unique story. And that's been a piece. And it's funny being here today because I've always been a pretty private person, even though I've encouraged all my clients to share your story, share your differentiator, like what makes you unique? Why is someone buying from you and not the next person? And it's like that uniqueness that you bring, like your story, no one else can do it like you. Mm-mm. And I've been so scared for so long to share my story. And the last session that I had with Bianca and with my medium therapist was share your story. Like, it's time, you're ready.
Well, and look what happened.
And then
here you sit.
Yeah.
Again, you manifested that.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I think it's really exciting because it's beyond me. Like, I think that Whxte for me just is such a, it stands for empowerment. And
yeah, I love the name. And now hearing all of the story, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. And I really, through it, I want to empower other women. And no matter what stage they're in, there is this ring that we have it's this gorgeous, it has diamonds around the entire ring. It's this big 4.5 carat diamond eternity ring. And I named it the divorce ring. Not because we're not we're pro-divorce, but I think the point of it was for me to, there's just so much shame around that.
Gift yourself something.
Yeah.
For choosing you.
Yeah. There's so much shame around divorce. There's so much stigma. And a lot of times it is kind of, it's not about that, and it shouldn't be about that. It should be a courageous act of self-love. Mm-hmm. And that's most times what it is.
Well, the thing that's interesting about relationships is that just like any relationship in your life, whether it's a romantic relationship, it's a marriage or whatever it is, they come in and out of your lives for reasons at certain times for a reason. And we don't always understand that when we're in it.
Yeah.
But later, when our perspective shifts and we see what comes with it, it becomes a little more, it's like hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
You can't see it when you're right there.
Right.
But if you give it enough time, you're going to understand what that means. And the best part about that, and this is something that I really, really, truly believe, is that when a relationship, a marriage ends, it can be a beautiful thing. You may go your separate ways and you may have distaste. Now, you can't control what someone does because everybody has free will. And they may do things that make it so you cannot connect and stay connected in some way, and that's out of your control. But how can you control? You can control how you respond to anything.
Right.
So that's the only thing we have control of ever is our own reaction, our own feelings, our own compassion, our own love, all of those things. Yeah. So when a relationship ends, can you be bitter or can you be better?
Right.
Can you rise above whatever's going on over there? Because again, you don't have control over it. So what are you going to do with it? So I feel like so many marriages that do end for a good reason,
right,
doesn't mean that it has to be an ugly thing. It can be healing for both people. And there can be, especially when there's children involved. Yeah. And I'm not saying this always happens, but it is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible. Now you have to have 2 willing participants, but even if you don't, you know what you can do.
Right.
And that's all you got.
Right. And that is what you can give yourself too.
Yes.
It's like that forgiveness for yourself, one, for choosing wrong.
For sure.
And for the other person.
Well, you can't forgive anybody else till you forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
It starts with you. Everything starts with you.
Yeah.
As soon as you can forgive and love and have compassion for yourself, you then can do that for others. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why choosing yourself is essential for connection.
Yeah.
In any connection.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's, there's more than the divorce ring, but my goal is to work with a lot of healing stones. Stones can be really healing, and all my collections kind of have that spiritual undertone to it, but I want it to be a reflection of me, where it's like, it's for the women that want that. They want that protection. They want that connection, but they maybe don't want to buy like the big beaded, gaudy, opal stone necklace that you'd see in like a Native American shop. Like, they're more subtle about it. And so that's my goal, is to essentially create pieces that like have that spiritual, like protective, empowering undertone to it, but look chic and modern.
Beautiful. And
yeah.
That's really cool. Well, they naturally will, because that's the energy you're bringing to it.
Right.
So they will. And it's funny because even the women that are drawn to it, they may not realize why they're drawn to it.
Right.
But it's the energy behind it that is drawing them to it. Just like with you.
Yeah.
You were drawn to these things. You happen to like really beautiful jewelry that comes with a price tag, but you're drawn to it for a reason. It's an energy.
It is. Everything is an energy. And, I've just learned so much through this process, and like my hope is to help other people, because it can be intimidating, like talking about these things, and spirituality is, I think it's intimidating, but so many people are waking up to it and like kind of getting into it. And I just think it's like, when I created, so my first collection was the Angel Numbers collection, because I just had to.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know who's going to like this, but I'm going to do it because I'm obsessed, and it's the only thing I see. And it had such a great reaction.
Oh, I believe it.
From so many people, and so many people connected to it in different ways. And it was just really beautiful to see, like, to have my first collection have so many people resonate with something that I kind of just made because I liked it.
You chose you.
Yeah, choosing me again. But it's been a fun journey, and I can't wait to just like see where the path takes me. But I think connecting with women and hearing other people's stories has been so healing for me through this. And I love working with women. I love like having these hard conversations, and it's just been such a journey. It really has. And I'm so grateful for where I am right now.
Well, there's nothing better than speaking your truth freely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When I started this, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I was a hardcore businesswoman, very successful in my business over the years. And I was like, it's time for a shift. It was like, oh, okay. Something's changing, and I had to shift. And this was part of that. It's the platform of connection, sharing, speaking your truth, being real.
Yep.
Choosing yourself, which is this whole thing is me choosing me. Because I was having conversations like this at a private little table with someone, and I was moved and inspired to the point where it was like, oh my gosh, this has to be shared.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm feeling this way, why on earth wouldn't other people feel this way about hearing this? So, and I was not a podcast person. I've talked about this a lot here. I'm just sharing this with you because you probably don't know this about me. But when I realized that I needed, I needed a way to be able to share this, and I was not into podcasting. I didn't listen to podcasts. I owned 2 magazines. The magazines were not the place to share this kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? So I ended up selling the business. And then it was like, okay, it's time for this. Yeah. So, and Tammy Tuesday, the story behind Tammy Tuesday, and sorry for people that have heard this story because I've shared it a few times here, but Tammy Tuesday really has nothing, that's not what, this podcast has nothing to do with the name Tammy or that it's on a Tuesday. Tammy Tuesday was a mission for Tammy, like myself, choosing Tammy. And I chose one day out of the week to make my day for me. Yeah. And it was just a way that I was living. And then my husband, bless his heart, was like, this is going to be something. And I thought, no, this is just me. My husband's a muse of mine. He sees things before I do. He doesn't even realize what he's seeing, but he's like, no, if something's going to happen, something's going to happen. And then, of course, down the line, there it is. And it's like, okay, so he had the vision behind what it was going to be. Because when I was time to do the podcast, I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to call it. And he's like, well, it's got to be Tammy Tuesday, because think about it. The whole mission behind Tammy Tuesday was you choosing yourself, making time for you, self-love, self-fulfillment, self, which it's funny because even for me, my biggest thing is it's not about being self-centered. It's about centering yourself. Yeah. Center with yourself, because when you do that, everything else aligns.
Absolutely. And people can only meet you where you've met yourself.
Exactly.
Right. Like
you got to be your best self.
You can only give the love that at the level that you've given yourself. So loving yourself is like the most important job that you can do.
That's all there is, because everything else just happens. When you do that, all of the other beauty just unfolds. Yeah. You can't help but not do it. It's an energy. It feeds off of itself. So that was the whole reason why this whole mission started. I was like, okay, I'm doing that. And I mean, my journey started before starting the podcast, well before that, but this was a piece of it. So I love it when people can understand that about their journey and understand and embrace and step into it, because it does change everything.
It does.
It changes everything about your life.
And I think it's more important now more than ever, because we are, as a collective, we're going through this shift and kind of this awakening, but we're also more disconnected than ever, right? Like, we're under exercise and we're overstimulated and we're staring at our computers all day and we're not getting enough sunshine or nutrients that we need.
Or standing on the earth.
Yeah, and grounding.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like there's this huge disconnection, but I think people, again, collectively are starting to wake up to it and come back to
what
their
we are.
soul.
Yeah, what we are.
Which is really beautiful. And it really is like, that sounds really woo-woo and crazy to like someone that's just getting into it, but it's not linear, right? This like healing journey that we're all on. Like it's a balancing act, and you can still do Pilates and have martinis with your girlfriends and have a spiritual side.
Well, that's the best part about it, is that they coincide, and that's the only way it works here.
Yeah. Your
body, just like you were talking about being in your body, you have to embrace your masculine energy, which is your physical body, with your feminine, which is your divine connection. They have to marry each other to be fulfilled.
Yep.
That's the only way it works.
Yeah.
You have to embrace both. You came here with a reason, for a reason. So you don't want to live in the clouds, in the woo-woo as people call it, but you need to embrace it within this physical embodiment that we have.
Right.
What a gift.
Right.
We get to feel and experience. If we live there, we don't get to experience.
Right. Yeah.
So the pain, you got to love the pain because that's part of this experience, and it teaches you and keeps you on your path for all kinds of other things.
Right.
It's just the way it all comes together. It's just mind blowing. We can't even comprehend it as people.
No.
It's only in here. And when you're in here, you're like, you kind of understand it in this realm, but I don't think we really can. We never are fully enlightened in this realm. We're not meant to be. We're constantly learning and growing and evolving, but it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
amazing.
it's amazing.
It is. It's the duality of life, right? Like you can't have the good times without the bad or the light without the dark. And it is beautiful. And the sooner you learn to embrace that, I feel like the easier and the flowier, for lack of better words.
It's true. Flow. It creates flow.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have to stop rowing upstream and throw the oars out and flow.
Yes. Walk in the doors that are opening up for you, and the ones that are shutting in your face, let that be.
Let them.
Yeah.
And that's people too.
Yeah.
It's people in and out of your life too. That's just such a big, that was my whole point before. It was just the people that come in and out of our lives at different times. There's good reason for that. You don't need to be resistant to it. You need to be accepting of it because it's real. It's really happening for us.
Yeah. Which is easier said than done, right? You get broken
100%.
up with, or
yes. Well, adversities hurt.
Yeah.
Those pain points, they hurt. They're very, very real.
Yeah. Very
real. And that's okay. You got to embrace the pain and the things that you don't like about it, because on the other side of it, you realize, okay, now I understand. There is a way through. It's the way through it.
Right. Absolutely.
You're beautiful. You really are. I really am grateful that you were so candid and open to sharing your story, because really, truly, I've said this forever. The gift is in the sharing. It really is. So thank you for being honest. Thank you for speaking your truth. Thank you for having the courage to be open, because people that listen to this, it's just a part of the message that they need to hear, because everybody hears and experiences things exactly when they're supposed to. So this conversation is going to impact so many people at the perfect time.
Yeah.
So you doing that is such a gift to the world. So thank you for having the courage to do that.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. That's my whole hope, right? Is to inspire others to choose themselves, and to also forgive themselves, to follow their unique path and know that it's okay to fall down.
We stumble
50 times and get back up again. You can do that for yourself. It's just a choice. That's all it is.
Exactly. It's so huge. It's just a perspective. It's just an awareness. As soon as you can see it, things just make sense.
Yeah.
It feels right.
Yeah.
That's that intuition piece that I love, because it's just like our natural magnet. It's our natural antenna that's just in alignment.
Yeah. And you can strengthen it as you go, right? You learn, I'm still learning how to listen to mine.
Oh yeah, we all do. That's the lifelong journey. Because there are times when even the most intuitive of us, we screw up and say, oh, dang it.
Yeah.
I knew that, but I didn't do it. I mean, we do it every day. All of us do. You'd be lying if you said otherwise. That's called being human. Yeah. That's called being in this human experience. That's the beauty of the experience, is that we make mistakes and we fall down. If you didn't, then it sure would be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. We would be bored to tears if there was no struggle.
Well, we wouldn't choose to come here. That's why we choose to come here. Because it's I want to go have some fun. This is great. I understand what it's like when I'm in full alignment and I'm in the afterlife and I'm understanding this, but gosh, it was a lot more fun there.
Yeah. And, I can confidently say after doing this a couple times that when you do hit rock bottom, that's usually when it gets really good. Right
The flip side is incredible.
Yeah.
That's the gold.
Yeah.
I mean, in every sense of the word. That's the light. That's the gold. That's the stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. How can people find your jewelry? Because I know people will be like, I want to see this jewelry. So how can they find you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, all the social media platforms, and our website is whxte.com. It's spelled WHXTE.com.
I'll put it in the notes too, so people can look to be able to find you there too.
Yeah, but we're constantly coming out with new collections, and I wore my sapphires today, which are all about like speaking your truth and authenticity. So anyway, I can't wait to share more of what we're creating.
That's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah,
I'm happy for you. You really are. You seem very much aligned with what it is that you're doing. There's nothing better than seeing people that can do that.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I'm happy for you.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for being here again. Thank all of you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I always love it when I don't know my guest, because I get to know them in front of all of you, and you get to hear my response and hearing their incredible story, which is such a gift. I just love doing this work so deeply. It just it lights up my soul. So thank you all for tuning in. If you know anybody that this would help, or this resonated with you and you feel that it's somebody that could use it, please share it. That's the best way. You never know where somebody is on their path, and this might be just the message they need that day. So please share if you feel called to do that with anyone that you feel called to do it with. And if you ever want other information, you can always visit on my website, TammyTuesday.com, or on social media at TammyTuesdayLife. Always posting things for the podcast and other things there as well. Also, you can find information from my heart energy healing sessions that I offer. I would love for people to be engaged with that, because they're very powerful sessions. It's all about you connecting with you. I'm simply the facilitator for that, and some amazing things happen in those sessions. So I encourage you to engage if that's something you're called to do as well. Always leaving you with lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace.